Hi, I'm Jonathan Frazier. Thanks for watching. This is my arts and health presentation. I'm going to start out by talking about a project I worked on these last couple years for Penn Health in Lancaster. In the beginning, it was a conversation we had, and after our conversation, and I knew what they had in mind, I did a couple of concept pieces for them to consider and pick between. Now, they had said that they wanted local scenery. A waterway would be nice to incorporate, such as the Susquehanna. Natural imagery would be good, something positive and colorful. So this was my first concept piece. I kind of sketched it in and then did a little color study on top. And this is the Wrightsville Bridge, by the way, from the Columbia side of the river looking across. Um, and this is on the north side of the bridge. And then I did another study on the south side of the bridge, same side of the river there. There's a beautiful little park there that I just noticed for the first time when I was traveling around during the COVID lockdown. So again, we have the pencil sketch here and then the color study. And this second piece, they picked this to be the one that we would go with. So then I went to my larger canvas, 6 by 4 foot stretch canvas. I started doing a sketch on there and just using vine charcoal, getting it in light, basic shapes, layering in a little bit of brown, create an underpainting to support the color, and still playing around with the shapes a little bit. Um, Here we are getting a little bit of color, and now it's starting to look like something, getting the oil paint layered up there. And you can see I start general and then I go to smaller shapes. But just trying to create some interest and really make it an inviting piece so that people in the medical setting that might have to look at it every day. There's enough here that they're kind of always seeing something new in it, or even just a patient passing by once, that it's a pleasing kind of relaxing piece. Um, I kind of try to be mindful. You can see I have the roadway there, but also the paths and sort of creating an entrance for the viewer to enter this scene and make it more inviting. Um, and along those same lines, I even made up some things like the sailboat on the left there. I don't think the sailboats come up quite that far, but it just seemed like such a little bit of a whimsical element to put in. Um, and here we have it finished and framed. Now, I took pictures all along the way because I was always in communication with the folks at the medical center, um, just to be sure we were on the right track. I really wanted to be just what they wanted, and here we can see it in its natural ultimate setting there in the medical center. Now, shifting gears, whereas this was a studio piece because it was pretty large. Typically, I work in plein air, which means I work on an easel out in location, and I'll start a painting on location, and I'll bring it home and let it dry, and do some additional work at home too. So these are pictures from me painting up in Maine, um, and then here's in New Orleans. So I'm used to painting in public and painting in front of people. Um, Even painting in a tuxedo here for a gala event. So it was easy to get into the program here at Center Stage painting in the Cancer Institute lobby. Now it's a little different in that I work with acrylic here, whereas I'm primarily an oil painter. We can't really have oils and oil solvents in a medical setting. We have to be aware of the environment, so we use the acrylics because they're approved by the facilities people. Now at the beginning, I used to just bring in my own canvases and work on them in the waiting area just to sort of entertain people or give them a little diversion as they wait. And then as the program evolved, it became the ceiling tile painting and where the medical center would supply the primed ceiling tile, and I would work on that with acrylic paint. And here you can see I'm starting a piece again with sort of a brown underpainting, and it's a sort of a skyline sunrise in Harrisburg. You can see the center stage sign down there at the lower left to sort of identify the activity. You can see I'm wearing a mask um, to respect the environment. We see that same painting again, but further along with color laid over top of that brown underpainting. And again, wearing the mask. You can see in these pictures, we're careful not to have patients in the picture. So you can see we cropped off the person that was sitting on the right there to protect their privacy, because we're always very mindful of patient confidentiality. And here we are, another beginning brown underpainting of a scene that I remembered from a visit to the Pennsylvania Grand Canyon. Now you can see here another thing that you didn't see in the other picture is you see the drop cloth below the where I'm working. And again, that's just to protect the space and be mindful of the space. And you can also see that I typically tend to be set up in a corner or somewhere where I'm visible, but out of the way and not blocking patient or staff traffic. So we're very, very mindful of that. And here we have that painting further developed with more color on it. Almost done, but not quite. Okay. So a lot of these paintings are inspired. I never bring photos along or anything. I kind of go from memory and imagination. So some of these are actually places I've been in the past and painted on my own. I'm kind of remembering back to those times. And then other pieces like this one are purely made up for my imagination. It's sort of a whimsical amusement park piece with a hot air balloon I did with the Children's Hospital in mind. Sometimes I know where the tiles are slated to go, so I try to tailor my subject matter a little bit to that. And you can see, of course, my work cart. Just giving a little painting demo there. You can see the box where I mix my paint, the palette. I have that sort of angled up on the table so people can see more easily. Here we have the signs that were made during the pandemic, where artists would supply images of work that would then be have the words superimposed over them and made into signs to put around campus here. And then this one was from my painting I did down in Caledonia. And I had this image in mind when I did my ceiling tile painting. So similar but different. So you can kind of see how, one kind of influences the other. And then speaking of influences, if I can, I like to incorporate some cultural diversity. And here's some progress pictures from a mural I did at Miyako on 2nd Street, where I researched Asian gardens to create this sort of made up Asian garden. And it was a lot of fun to do this with the stone snow lanterns there on the bottom right, and the Mount Fuji, the peak of Mount Fuji in the distance, and various water features. And here it is further developed. This is still in existence, so if you ever happen to go to Miyako's, this is in the back dining area. But I bought some of those ideas and things that I learned into my ceiling tile painting here. So sort of Asian garden influences with the pagoda there and the red spherical lanterns, etc. So just having fun with it and just creating a colorful, uplifting, inviting scene. Again, I know these will end up in ceilings where people have to look at them for a while, so I try to have a lot of interest. But it's always neat to have the opportunity to reach out to something further away and more, cultural. Now, this is something closer to home. When I was doing the ceiling tile painting in town, when we had the vaccine clinic there, when I looked out the window, I saw this scene. And normally I wouldn't do an industrial scene for a ceiling tile, but I thought I'll just make it very colorful, and which I did eventually. But this is looking out and seeing the silos and the twin chimneys there, which would be a familiar scene for people that live in the area or pass through a lot. So that was a little unusual. This is more typical, sort of a nice, pleasant farmscape. And again, I like to start these things kind of with a brown underpainting before I get into the color. And again, you can see I'm in a different corner here, but the idea is the same, kind of being visible but staying out of the way so I not in the way of patients as they're moving around. It can be a very busy area there because there is an elevator bank at that location as well. So we're very careful how we set up. And these pictures you see, by the way, of me without a mask are obviously from before the pandemic. We always wear masks now in the medical setting. Um, so here's a picture of me painting in the main lobby, working on, again, a work in progress, sort of inspired by the amusement park for the Children's Hospital. And you see Michael Marini playing the grand piano back there. So this is something that's been happening more, kind of bringing the art and the music together at the same time in these spaces. So we're going to loop back to that here in a minute. Here's an original painting I did not too long ago on a trip to Lewis, Delaware. So I actually was out in the sand with my easel painting this lighthouse in oil. And then when I did this ceiling tile painting, I was sort of thinking back to that scene. Again, not making a copy, but just using it as a inspiration to get the ball rolling with the painting. Um, and then here we have further progress on that. It's still not finished. And you see Shelba there with her hand pans. Um, so again, the art and music connection. Um, and this is in the Cancer Center Institute lobby. And then I'm a musician also, so here I am playing a Native American flute. Before the pandemic, I used to have all sorts of exotic wind instruments, various Native American flutes, but also some hulusis from China. It was always fun to bring them in and play them because some people are very familiar with these instruments and the sounds they make. So it's neat to have that. And again, cultural diversity. And it just makes for an interesting performance where you can kind of break it up. This is an instrument from India. It's an electrified version of a bulbul tarang with a little bit of a swarmandal type bank of strings built into it. So that gets interest too. You can see here I have it in a live setup. I just kind of put it on top of my own keyboard to play. And then here's another fun thing. This is called a chaos pad that Korg makes, and you can sort of draw on it with your fingertip. And as you draw on that black square, it makes different sounds that respond to your touch. And what's really neat is you can set it to a particular key or mode, and and everywhere you move your finger, it will conform to that. So if I'm playing a song in A minor, I can just set that to A minor and then draw on it with my finger and not worry about hitting a wrong note. So that makes it great for a little. Sometimes you see other musicians, and you can get a little participation thing going because it is so much fun to get your hands on. We got Mark here playing it. Mark, of course, is a classical guitarist. All right, and then we'll circle back here to wrap it up. Here I am back at the medical center again, back before the pandemic, hence all the wind instruments and nobody wearing masks. Um, but you can see I play the piano. Mostly these days I play the piano because I can't play wind. But you can see here back then I had the Native American flutes. I had the Chinese hulusis. You can barely see them, but they're in the bright orange cases on top of the piano. I've got a melodica. That's the little keyboard there, and then I have a little glockenspiel. It's like a little set of bells there at the edge of the piano. I still bring that in sometimes because that's safe to play. So yeah, that's it. I just try to have a nice variety of things to keep people entertained, um, and also have that benefit of cultural diversity. And as I said before, always being visible but staying out of the way, and being sensitive to the environment and watching the volume. You can see here I'm playing the piano with the hood down, and a lot of times when I play the piano too, I'll even have my foot on the damper pedal much of the time, and I have a very light touch. because a little bit goes a long way in this main entrance lobby space. So these are all things I try to keep in mind as I go along and to be a productive contributor to the environment here at the medical center. Alrighty, thanks a lot.